meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll be starting in 2 minutes. All right, thank you and welcome everyone. My name is Taya Brown. I am the Administrative Coordinator here at the Temple Small Business Development Center. The Temple SBDC helps small businesses grow, and succeed. We do this through our no-cost consulting and a variety of our no-cost webinars and training programs like the one you're attending today. You are joining us for Intro to Branding. We are recording today's session, and a copy of the recording and today's PowerPoint will be sent to all attendees within a few days in a follow-up email. All attendees have been muted, and we encourage you to post any questions in the Q&A. Now I'll turn the floor over to our presenters.
Hi, everybody. Like you said, thank you so much for having us. My name is Mario St. Fleur, along with my partner, Dan Jacob. We're the co-founders of Everyday Web. So we're pretty much an agency located right in Philadelphia. So as you mentioned, we're going to be discussing branding and why branding is important for businesses. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen. So just give me 1 second. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Confirm. Okay, so like I said, today we're going to be discussing intro to branding and why branding is so important for businesses. As I mentioned, my name is Mario St. Fleur, along with my co-founder, Dan Jacob. We started a company called Everyday Web, located in Philadelphia last year. So we're a digital marketing agency that offers a wide range of services. So Dan and I actually met a couple years ago at this place called Venture Cafe, located right in Philadelphia. So beforehand, and this is important because I'm going to kind of relate it to some of the points that I'm going to talk about just shortly. So Dan and I, we met a couple years ago at Venture Cafe, and beforehand, him and I were kind of doing our own separate thing, helping businesses throughout the city and within our communities understand the importance of having an online presence, and also helping them build their online presence through like websites and things like that. So when Dan and I came together, we were trying to figure out, why we wanted to get started. And during COVID, we saw that a lot of businesses were kind of struggling, and we wanted to be the ones that kind of help them fulfill their needs and help them with the services and everything. So during this webinar, I'm going to talk about a few different topics. So one of the things that I'm going to discuss is what is branding. I'm going to dive in, not too deep, but just like a high level overview into understanding your ideal customers, your messaging, fonts, colors, and more, as well as the importance of consistency, because for any business to succeed, you have to be consistent with your branding. And then lastly, I'm going to touch on why branding is important for businesses. So before I go into the next slide, I just want everybody to kind of think about throughout this entire webinar, some of the different topics I'm going to talk about. For instance, consider what you think branding is, and then kind of relate that to what the definition that I'll give you on the next slide. And then some of the other different things, such as understanding, what your brand story is, what your messaging is. If you have like logos, fonts, and colors and things like that, how are you currently using them, and how that's going to help your business grow. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then as you go along, just kind of look at to see if there's any gaps that you're not necessarily fulfilling, and how those gaps might be able to be filled going forward as you start to grow your business and everything. So by definition, the brand is a way for people to identify one business from another through their name, design, symbol, or anything else. So I look at that last point like anything else. So what does that mean, right? So anything else is basically, how you conduct yourself. For instance, when you're going out promoting your brand, um, there's two different ways to kind of look at it, because sometimes, people, I don't know if you ever heard these sayings, but people say you have like a personal brand, right? But when you're out promoting your business, it's kind of twofolded, right? So you're promoting your business, which is your business brand, but you're also promoting yourself as well, which is your personal brand. So I just want everybody to kind of look at it that way. Just something to think about as you go along. So some of the things that I want to touch on here within the slide is your brand story. For any brand, whether how big or how small, it's always important to understand your mission and vision. So for instance, for a lot of businesses, that we come across, they don't really understand this. And what we kind of do is just kind of help them understand their vision and their mission, because to build any brand, to build your foundation for your brand, this is ideally where you have to start with. And then that kind of ties into asking yourself why, right? Like the why for any business is important. I remember there was this one TED talk. His name is Simon Sayek, very famous. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of him, but he had this webinar where he discussed the why, and the company that he focused on was Apple. So he kind of discussed, it was like three pillars pretty much, where he discussed what Apple does, how Apple does it, and why. And the most important point that he wanted to make is why Apple does it, because as a business owner, you have to ask yourself, and for a lot of businesses, they kind of look at the bottom line, right? So the bottom line of most businesses is profit. But at the end of the day, profit isn't what's going to help you get up in the morning to work on your business. Profit isn't what's going to, encourage your team to help you build your business, to help you achieve your vision that you have for your business. So one thing that you have to understand is always asking yourself why. And what I mentioned earlier about our business, Everyday Web, the reason why we started is because we saw like there was a lot of gaps. A lot of businesses in our community of Philadelphia. So I'm from West Philly, and Dan is from the Northeast. We saw that a lot of the businesses didn't really understand why they needed to be online, or if they did, they weren't really maximizing it to its full potential. So that's the reason why Dan and I, we do this, and why we're hosting this webinar, is because we really want you to see why branding is important, why having things like websites, such are important to help you grow. And then one of the other core things that you have to remember is understanding the core values that your brand is built on. So, for instance, I'm just going to use Everyday Web as an example, and I'm going to relate this to the next slide as well. Is that some of the core values that we have is that we're trustworthy, we're very professional, and the clients that we work with before, they like the quality of service that we provide. They see that we really care about the business and also helping their businesses grow and succeed. So, and going into that last point, the question that you have to ask yourself as you're building your brand is, what value do you provide to your customers? Because that's going to help you tell the story of your brand. And I'll show you a little bit later on a couple brands that are really doing a great job of doing that. So the next point that I want to make is your ideal customer, right? So I think a lot of people, when they think about branding and selling their product, they think that they're going to be able to sell it to everybody, right? Well, that's not really the case. There's a term called niche. So what that means is understanding like the niche of customers that your brand fits. So whether you're like a car, so for example, like luxury car brands, right? Like Mercedes or Porsche or Cadillac, those different types of brands, they have a certain type of clientele that they're trying to sell to. So, those are some of the things that you really want to consider as you're starting to build your brand. And then there's a lot of different other types of brands, such as like an everyday brand, such as like, streetwear is a very popular term for that. And there's so many more. And then another point that you have to consider is, what are you selling? So as I just mentioned, um, especially with cars, there's various different types of cars. Like, for instance, you have like Toyota that are probably geared more towards like families and, like the everyday driver that are, driving the kids to practice or and so forth. So you really have to consider what you're selling when you're building your brand so that you can properly align your brand to customers that fit your brand. And then the last point here is understanding like your primary gender, for instance. So are you going to be targeting male or female or both, which in a lot of cases is the case, right? Also, you want to consider the age. So for instance, um, depending on what type of brand you are, what you're selling, uh, certain people, certain demographics might fit more with what you're offering. So, you really want to keep that in mind as you start to go. And then some of their interests and things like that as well. Another important point that I want to bring up as well is your messaging. And for a lot of brands, whether you're visually promoting your business or you're like speaking about your business, there's something called a brand voice. So what that is, and typically how that looks like is, you would kind of ask yourself as a business owner, what adjectives kind of describe my business. So as I mentioned, and as you see here, some of the examples like exciting, professional. So when you're speaking on social media, when you're posting, when you're just outside, just talking to people, you want to kind of keep your brand voice in mind because that's going to allow current or even potential customers to have a better idea as to what the type of business that you're running and how they view your business. And then, as I just mentioned too, how you visually portray your business and your brand is very important, and that's going to allow you to grow as well. So, a quote that I want to mention here is came from Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and he mentioned that your brand is what your customers say about you when you're not in your room. So really, what that comes down to is your brand recognition, reputation. So a lot of companies in business they sometimes are not aligned. So, for instance, if they're on social media, as an example, they're posting one thing one time and then like next time they're posting something completely different. So what that does is it kind of confuses your customers and what it does is like I said it confuses your customers and it helps them really not to understand where you're going with your brand, what type of feeling you want them to have when they're either wearing your clothes or driving your car and things like that. So I'm sure you've seen it. The messaging for a lot of these different companies are very consistent because they have a certain message that they want to portray to their customers whenever they're wearing their clothes or driving their cars and things like that. So next, I kind of want to give you an example. This is MailChimp. So pretty much on social media and how MailChimp kind of portrays themselves, they're not so serious, right? So when you think of email marketing, you think it's kind of bland, it's pretty boring, not exciting. Like you think of like numbers or you think of just sending out email campaigns and things like that. So what MailChimp kind of did was they kind of, and this is something that they call a rebrand, right? So a few years ago, MailChimp was actually very, it's like bland and dry in how they were doing things. So they did something called a rebrand where they kind of went back and spoke to their clientele, to the customers to better understand how they might be able to better portray themselves. And this is just one of many examples that MailChimp kind of uses. So as I just mentioned in the previous slides, uh, visually how you portray your brand is important, but also the way that you speak about your brand. So for instance, as you see here, they're just kind of making fun of getting back to work after Memorial Day, which was like a couple of days ago, and just kind of like highlighting and poking fun at going back to work and scheduling meetings and things like that. So as you start to consider your brand, you really want to consider, like I mentioned, some of the different adjectives that are going to really, describe your brand and how you want your brand to be portrayed to your customers and even prospective customers as well. So next slide, I kind of want to highlight a more serious brand. So like I'm sure everybody knows Dove, right? They provide a lot of personal products like soaps, deodorants, body wash and things like that. So what Dove kind of does is they try to be very like serious and uplifting in how they promote themselves, right? So this is one of the series that they've done where they kind of highlight this girl and as it mentions here, she's facing some discrimination based off of her hair. And this is one of many examples that Dove uses where they kind of highlight, for instance, like skin and things like that. So as you start to go along, you really want to consider your brand and how you want that to be portrayed to everybody. So now we kind of get into more of like the visual perspective of your brand. as you know, I'm sure a lot of people know, there's a lot of different fonts out there that you may consider when putting everything together. So serif fonts are, and I'll show you some examples in the next slide. So serif fonts are fonts such as like Times New Roman that have like the pointy extensions at the end. Sans serif fonts are more modern fonts, so they don't have the serifs at the end. So as you can see here, even the fonts that we're using in this slide do not have below like extensions and pointing things at the end. So that means that it's more of a sans serif font. So the different fonts that you select are very important for your business because what that's going to do is, especially for serif fonts, they're more like historical, more text-based. As I mentioned with like Times New Roman, Word documents, you know, they're very more professional and things like that, as compared to serif fonts, which are more, a lot of more modern brands use that because it kind of gives a more modern feel, a more like comfortable, casual type of feel to it. And then display fonts are more like, I would say like if you're the type of brand such as like a daycare or something like that, you might use more display fonts because they probably appeal a little bit more to like children and things like that. It kind of gives like a more fun, outgoing type of vibe as compared to the other two. And then obviously with colors, right? So in a few slides, I'll kind of show this. Colors are important to any brand. And depending on what type of color and what type of feel you want your customers to kind of feel and see when they see your brand, it's going to be very crucial. So as I mentioned, these are a few examples here. So Quasimodo is actually the font that we use at Everyday Web. It's a sans serif font, so it's more like I said, casual, more laid back, more outgoing in a sense, as compared to something like as you see here, Times New Roman, which is a little bit more professional, a little bit more like historical. As I mentioned, like the example, Word documents, right? Whenever we think of Times New Roman, Word documents are like the first thing that we think of, right? So wanted to highlight that. And then Golf Display, like I said, is a display font that are more uh, fun, relaxing, outgoing, and things like that. So just want to take a second there to kind of just stop and just want everybody to just, like I said before when I first started, to just think about a lot of the, I know it's a lot, but just a lot of the different things that I mentioned here. And if, like I said, if there's any gaps, you know, take note of that and just kind of think of those things as you start to go along. So as I mentioned before, the importance of colors. So whenever you think about your brand, um, color really plays a big role into that, right? So as you see here, orange, yellow has more of like an optimistic type of feel. Think about the sun, right? Think about when we see the sun outside every day. We get excited. It's summer, you know, we have a good vibe. All our moods are very good. You know, we're excited to hang out. You know, all those different types of things. So some of these different brands kind of use that color to kind of portray that type of feeling. And then you look at like orange, which is a little bit more friendly, cheerful, and confidence, instills confidence in people. And then a big one, you know, is like red, right? So whenever you think of red, you think of something like bold, excitement, and daring. You know, red is like the color of luxury, right? So like different luxury brands will kind of use like red and some of their ads to kind of promote, you know, excitement and things like that. Another point that I want to bring up is purple, which is like creativity. Blue, which is trust, and then green. You know, we know like a lot of like eco-friendly type companies that, as you see here, like John Deere, BP, and all these different companies that encourage, you know, taking care of the earth or different things that says like mowing your lawn and stuff like that. They use green. And then this one that's called balance. So I would say balance is probably the hardest one to use out of all of them because they're very unique brands. That's probably the best way I can say it. They're very unique brands that can really use like these colors here to really portray and provide the values of the brand. Um, so whenever you're thinking of your brand, whether your business has just started or you've been in business for years, you know, starting off with like your colors is very important in being able to portray a proper image to your customers. So yeah, I just wanted to like highlight these different points in terms of like colors and how that can help your business. All right, so the next point that I want to go into is hierarchy. So when you are creating like different things like flyers, right, for instance, or creating a website, whatever the case may be. What hierarchy does is, as you see here, it draws your eyes to a certain area of like a flyer or a particular portion of a page on the website. So what that does is it allows you to list information in a way that, okay, I don't need to go search for whatever information I'm looking at. I can easily look at it and see like, okay, I see this example here. So obviously this is some type of conference that they're having. This is the name of the conference. This is information about the conference. This is the date. And then here you can use color as well. So what that does is it allows you to see like, okay, this is obviously clickable. So if I'm on the website, it's clickable and I can easily go and learn more and apply to, be a part of the conference, whatever the case may be. And then the other example here is this was for Memorial Day. So this is something that Apple did where one of the things they wanted to highlight was obviously having savings and things like that. So as you see here, this text is embolded. It's a larger font compared to the other text around it. And then they used a different color here to let you know that this is the date that this particular sale or saving or whatever is going to end. And then obviously, like I said before, this lets you know that, you can click it to learn more. So this is here is basically the homepage of our website at Everyday Web. As you can see here right off the bat, right, the first thing that you see is get affordable, get digital marketing you can actually afford. So for us, we wanted to let people know that, hey, unlike all the different people out here who are doing the same things that we're doing, we want to let you know that we're providing services that are actually affordable. So if you want to continue, please learn more about what we do, reach out to us, and we'll be there to provide these services for you. Another point that I want to make when it comes to branding as well is consistency. And we feel like a lot of businesses and organizations, especially within our communities, aren't always the best when it comes to understanding the point of consistency. Because what consistency can do for you too, and how you achieve it, is that there's something called like a branding guideline, right? So what it is that you have like a document that outlines the different fonts that you use, different colors, your logos, and so forth. Anything else that you want to have in there, so that, for instance, if you're running your business yourself, or if you have a team, they know, hey, I can look at this document. It has everything that I need to create like a flyer, to create like business cards, to create social media posts, whatever the case may be. So this is why consistency is important. And one thing that we found too is that at least the credibility, right? So there's so many businesses that aren't credible because, to put it simple, their brand isn't consistent. And for customers, they find that if they're looking online for like a particular product, like for instance, like they're looking to shop online for like a hat or something like that, and they come across your website and they see that, for instance, your logo isn't correct, or like the colors are all over the place, or just the process that they have to go through to make a purchase isn't consistent, they're going to deem that your website is credible, and they're basically just going to go to somebody else who is more credible and just make a purchase from them. So for a lot of businesses, they say that 20 to 30% have actually seen an increase in revenue because their brand is consistent. For a lot of them, that's led to something called lead generation. So what that means is they're able to find more customers or more clients that potentially needs their brand or needs their business or product or services. And then another important point is brand recognition. So as we've seen, like big brands, and another point too is big brands like Nike, Apple, Mailchimp, they all invest so much into their brand because they know that if they do that, then the brand becomes recognizable, and that they're more likely to keep their customers, but also potentially find new customers. So just want to bring that up. So why is branding important for businesses? Well, there's a few reasons why. Branding leads to competitive advantage. Um, as I just mentioned, for when you look at a business within the same industry, right? For instance, if you're like a retail store, if one has branding, one doesn't, one thing you want to consider is which one is more likely to um, keep the most customers, right? Well, honestly, like the brand that has the brand that is in place for that business is going to be the one that gets and has the competitive advantage over the person that does not have the branding in place. So, want to really keep that in mind. Branding, as I said, also helps with advertising. So, when you're advertising, as I mentioned, you want to have something called a branding guideline in place for different platforms or different materials that you're creating. Because what that does is it not only makes it consistent, but it also speeds up the process of um, your marketing efforts, for instance, right? So, for instance, let's say you didn't have a brand, you're just going around just trying to put everything into place. But if you do have consistent branding, like, hey, I can just take this one thing, I have like a template or something for it. I can just kind of take it, put it together, revamp it, and then um, use it to promote my business or whatever the case may be. And then another point, and this ties into the last slide, is it creates loyal customers, right? So as you start to grow and your business becomes more and more well known, you'll have loyal customers. And branding is just one way to achieve that in helping you create a loyal customer base. So yeah, I think that's about it. Um, does anybody have any questions? We'll definitely have some time now to just take some questions. If anybody has any. Hey, Dan, do you want to jump in? Or
Yeah, doesn't look like we have any questions right now, but feel free to drop those in the chat. I did want to say, one thing we didn't mention was that branding is probably the funnest part about being a business owner, right? I'm sure you guys all know you're dealing with things every day, like, payroll and legal and all that stuff. I would say branding is probably the one part of business where it doesn't feel like work. So definitely take what you learned today, have some time to yourself, yeah, and have some fun while you're doing this. So yeah, please reach out to us if you need any help. But yeah, we'll look at the chat if you have any questions. Could you give more examples of branding? Is one question that came in uh, from Janice. Mario, you got anything for that?
yeah, definitely. So just give me one second. Does anybody have any other questions in the meantime while I pull something else up?
I think that's all we have for now.
Okay, hold on one second.
Do you have suggestions for making your brand voice sound whimsical? That's a good one. I think MailChimp is a great place to start. I would say definitely go on Twitter, see what your favorite brand that you already follow are saying. A lot of times you'll find great inspiration through them. So definitely, if you're not on Twitter, you don't have to make an account. Just browse some brands you like. I think you'll find a lot of funny stuff on there.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to that point in terms of how to make your brand a little bit more whimsical, um, and I'll share my screen again just to kind of go over some of these points, especially as some of the questions start to come in. Um, let's give me one second. So, how to make your brand more whimsical? That's a very good question, right? So, some of the things that you can do is, as I mentioned throughout this presentation, was consider some of the different adjectives that you want to kind of describe your business. So, whimsical is one adjective that you would kind of look at, and anything that you can think about that kind of fits within being whimsical. So, you can look up like different synonyms and just start to kind of think about things that are like funny. You can even look at different brands that are already out there that you kind of already admire, that you appreciate, and see how they're kind of promoting your brand. So as I mentioned with MailChimp here, right? So this is like one of the most recent posts. They kind of were, as I mentioned, just making fun of going back to work after Memorial Day. So I would say, you know, create a list of different brands that you think fit within being whimsical, being funny, being serious, professional, whatever the case may be, and just go on their social media pages. Just kind of look at what are they doing, how are they being funny, and really kind of just dive deep into that because sometimes it's even little things that you're not even thinking about, right? For instance, it could be like how they're commenting or how they're like engaging with their audience. So, I would say even just looking at MailChimp as an example here, just go on their page and just look at how they're engaging with their audience, not just by how they're commenting, but also looking at the stories or like different videos that they're promoting and things like that. So that's one way you can kind of consider it. But I would say like starting out with different adjectives you want to use to kind of describe your business and just kind of go on off of that.
So we did get another question, and that was, can you talk about the legalities of setting up your brand as it comes to choosing fonts? I was going to purchase a font for my logo, and apparently I would not be able to trademark it. What can I use that's out there to get started without getting into legal issues?
So
That
uh,
is, sorry, go.
yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to go too much into that, but in terms of like the legalities of your font, I would say the best way to do it is, especially like through Google and Adobe. Those are like two predominant places that, even for some of the people that we work with, that we kind of look at for fonts and things. So when you're if you're looking at those places to use fonts, so typically for Google, right, all their fonts are free. So you can use those fonts for your business and like other purposes. And then for Adobe, um, most of their fonts you probably have to purchase. So once you purchase that font is yours to be able to use for your business and so forth. Um, yeah, go ahead, Dan. You may have something.
Yeah, just kind of want to add to that. A lot of like Google Fonts and even some other platforms out there that have like logos or things you can download. That's all public domain. I think where it gets kind of tricky is if your brand looks like something else or feels like something else. We're definitely not lawyers, so probably good to look into that. But there's definitely a bunch of free resources out there, especially like Google, where you can definitely get fonts. I know there's more sources like Canva that even have graphics and things like that. So you shouldn't run into any problems there, but definitely a great point. And yeah, make sure to consult with your lawyer about any types of branding, especially if you're trying to trademark it. Good point.
Right. And just to kind of jump on that point too, one thing you want to consider when you're building your brand is obviously we all look for inspiration in different places, right? You're going to look at a brand out there and I just mentioned it too, that are similar to yours. You're going to look at them for inspiration. But what you don't want to do is basically just copy what they have and just kind of revamp it. Um, and some of the exercises that you'll run when you're thinking about your brand in terms of some of the different adjectives, what you personally think about your brand and what that brand is, what your customers think about your brand. All of that is going to help you create like a logo, create a unique brand that's going to be uniquely yours that not nobody else is going to be able to use. Um, so I just wanted to put that out there for you all. If there's anything else.
See here. Do you know any resources for trademarking my name? Do you know a few? Definitely uspto.gov is probably the best place to start. I'll drop a link to that in the chat. But there are resources out there too. Let me drop that here. Like Trademark Engine, I remember is one. Let me drop a link to that here. Basically, those are like services kind of like LegalZoom, where they kind of give you a flat fee for trademarks and things like that. So definitely a great question.
And while you are submitting your questions, I'll post a link to our 4-question survey about today's webinar. We value your feedback and we use it to improve our future events. This is also required by our funders, the Small Business Administration, so we can continue offering no-cost workshops. I saw a few questions about legal information. We do offer a webinar called Legal Formation. I'll also post a link to our other resources in case anyone is interested. And thank you, Dan, for providing those other services as well that you're
Yep.
putting down below.
No problem.
Awesome. Also wanted to add in, I don't know if you have more time or not, but yeah, if anybody wants to follow us or just stay connected with us, please feel free to reach out to us. Also too, and if you want to provide them with this link as well, we wanted to ask if you want to sign up to be in our newsletter. So what we're going to do is, for everybody who attended the webinar, we wanted to provide you guys with like I mentioned, a branding guideline. And what that's going to do is it's going to help you really align your brand and figure out things such as what's your mission and values, understanding better about your customers and what they think about your business, and really creating a document that's going to help you align your brand to make sure that everything is consistent. So if you like to have that document, like I said, we'll send it out by next week, and we'll send it out to everybody who wants it.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
I was going to say too, if anybody has any feedback, even on us, I know, especially some of the topics that people ask here, I would have loved to have been able to touch them on that. So if there's anything else that we didn't discuss that you want to know more information about, please, please let us know. And yeah, we'll provide some information on that to kind of help you better understand branding and everything. So somebody asked,
Okay.
is there a code suitable?
What was the question?
Just they asked if there's a brand for suitable.
Survey link should be in the chat. For suitable, I'm not sure about. But yeah, there's definitely some resources and stuff like that in the chat. So please take a look at that. And if you got a second, definitely sign up for the newsletter. But yeah, thank you all so much again. Really appreciate everyone coming out on a Wednesday at 5. So definitely nice to have you all here.
No, thank you so much I know a lot of you are probably either running your business or just got off of work and stuff like that. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario and Dan, for presenting today. Everyone will receive a follow-up email with the recording for today's webinar, as well as the presentation. So you should receive that within 2 to 3 business days after today. Looks like we don't have any other questions at the moment. So again, thank you, Dan and Mario, and we will follow up with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.